Hi everyone, I'm April, and I want to talk to you about the battle that I'm having with the judges who are my ex-colleagues, and Anthony Brown, who is Maryland's Attorney General, and Angela Alsobrooks, who is one of Maryland's United States Senators. I'm going to talk to you in a series of videos, and this is video number 1. I want to start with the summer of 2023. I was 2.5 years into my position as a judge on the Circuit Court for Prince George's County, Maryland, and I had to sit down with an attorney to get legal advice because Judges Sheila, Tillis, and Adams, Michael Pearson, Danica Cotton, they filed this 1,000-page ethics complaint against me. This is after Judge Sheila Tillis and Adams resigns from her position in tears and angry at me for causing her resignation. My attorney just happened to be close enough to the chairman of the Ethics Commission. His name is Michael Reed. He's also a judge here in Maryland. My attorney says to me, "This is all happening to you because of your campaign about the judges making money off of locking up children. Are you willing to take it all back?" Justice is not for sale. Our children are not for sale. They can keep the robe. Oh, and believe me, they kept the robe. The day after they terminated me from the position, the robe that I paid $300 for went missing. But I want to take you back to that campaign about the judges making money off of locking up children. That was year 2016. It was the first time I decided to run for judge. And there was a judge who was up for re-election. His name is Herman Dawson. The New York Times had written an article about Herman Dawson mass incarcerating children for trivial offenses. And God bless those public defenders who had the courage to contribute to that article and to make it happen. It was real news. So I decided to put it in the spotlight. In my campaign, I actually made a campaign video and it had a short news clip about the Kids for Cash scandal in Pennsylvania. The Kids for Cash scandal is about 2 judges who built a juvenile detention facility, and they were making money off of every child they put in the facility. One of the judges was the administrative judge, who just like here takes on the role of assigning the work on the court to the other judges. And the other judge was the juvenile judge, who the administrative judge assigned to hear the juvenile cases. So the administrative judge, he was tried and convicted for his role in the scheme. He's still serving a very lengthy prison sentence. The juvenile judge, however, he pled guilty. During COVID, he got out on compassionate release. And just before Biden left office, he commuted his sentence. So he's now free. We'll talk more about him later. But in addition to that campaign video, I also told my story about how I was victimized by public corruption. And the reason I told this story was because I wanted people to understand and trust 3 things about me. Number 1, I can't be bought. Number 2, I despise corruption in our government. And number 3, if I witness corruption on the Circuit Court for Prince George's County, Maryland, I'm going to call on law enforcement for assistance. So I'm going to tell you very briefly what happened to me. In 2012, I was drugged and raped at a bar association conference in Tampa, Florida. I got one of the attorneys involved to talk to me while the police were recording the conversation. I got a confession out of him. The recording disappeared. We'll talk more about what happened to the recording later. But there's 2 other attorneys that I want to mention. One of them is Daryl Parks. He was president of the Bar Association. I was drugged in Daryl's hotel room, and his law partner was Benjamin Crump. And together they had a law practice in Florida, and they had significant influence over the prosecutors in Tampa, Florida. They corruptly influenced the prosecutors to destroy the recorded confession. But again, we'll talk more about that later. So we lost the primary in 2016. Okay. But I got the Libertarian Party to put me on the general election ballot. They believed in my ability to serve the community as a judge. They also believed in my ability to stand up to corruption. But unfortunately, we lost the general election. But here's the big thing. It's the judges' reaction to me and my campaign in 2016 that made it very obvious they were making money off of locking up children. There were a number of things they did. All right. So let's start with the changes in the law that happened after I lost in 2016. They get Eric Barron, their buddy, who is a Maryland legislator at the time, to introduce legislation that passes that prevents someone who is running for judge and runs in the primary and loses from getting a minority party, like the Libertarian Party, to put you on the general election ballot. So if I decide to run again and I run in the primary and I lose, I can't get the Libertarian Party to put me on the general election ballot. Okay. The next thing they decided to team up with my enemies down in Florida. The 2 attorneys I told you who corruptly influenced the prosecutors to destroy the recorded confession when I reported being drugged and raped in Tampa, Florida. Okay. There was an attorney She had recently relocated here from Florida. Okay. She worked for Parks and Crump, those two lawyers. She had no courtroom experience. But the judges hired her as a magistrate on the court. She was there on the inside to create a hostile environment for me if I got on the inside. Next. All right. Herman Dawson got a lot of heat before my campaign, but my campaign amplified the New York Times article. He got a lot more heat after that. So the judges had to cover up their tracks. They stopped locking up the children, okay? They had some blanket policy not to lock up any children, which backfired on them because some children are dangerous and they need to be locked up. But they were trying to cover their tracks. But here's the big one. They started building their own juvenile detention facility. But unlike Pennsylvania, okay, the children don't sleep at the facility. Okay, they're on lockdown during the day while they're at the facility, so it's a juvenile detention facility, and it generates more money and services for the child, more money that they can make off of this place. They called it a court school. All right, so we're a very big county. We have a school board of 9 officials that we elect to make decisions about our schools. They can build schools, renovate schools, and more importantly, they decide who gets the contracts that provide the services at the schools. But the judges circumvented the school board. The school board had nothing to do with this because they wanted to control the money that flows in and out of their juvenile detention facility. They want to make money off of it. So, 2018. Our new county executive comes in, Angela Alsobrooks. Former state's attorney, right? She's now United States Senator. Angela promises the judges $23 million to help them build their juvenile detention facility / court school that they're going to make money off of. All right. I decided to run again in 2018 and I get the Libertarian Party to put me on the general election ballot. I don't run in the primary because remember there's changes in the law. So I can't lose the primary and get the Libertarian Party to put me on the general election ballot. So I just choose the general election. The Libertarian Party, once again, believed in my ability to serve the community as a judge and to stand up to corruption. Now, the judges, they get their friends to sue me and they take me off the general election ballot. So I didn't get to run in 2018. All right. 2020, next election cycle, I run again. This time, I tell my story about being victimized by public corruption once again in a campaign video, and on a blog on my website. And again, I told that story because I wanted people to understand 3 things about me. I can't be bought. I despise corruption in our government. And if I witness corruption on the circuit court for Prince George's County, Maryland, I'm calling the FBI. Now, we won the 2020 primary. Yes, we did. Angela Alsobrooks, all right? Remember, Angela's helping the judges build the juvenile detention facility / court school that they're all going to make money off of. She fights me really hard in that 2020 general election. She was controlling a PAC that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars flooding the polls with these sample ballots that had my name grayed out to deceive people into thinking that I lost the primary. It didn't work. We beat Angela Alsobrooks. We won the general election in 2020. Now, Angela, after I won, made the smartest move she could have ever made in her career. She took me seriously in my campaign. She delayed the funding on the prison project / juvenile detention facility / court school, right? So, and you've got to watch these county council meetings. They're on video. Mel Franklin was Sheila Tillison Adams' right-hand person on the county council who was helping her build this juvenile detention facility / court school. And in these meetings, he's upset. This is right after I win in 2020. He's upset that Angela Alsobrooks has delayed the funding on the juvenile detention facility. He can't understand why she would do it. Everything was in order. They thought this thing was going to break ground, right away. And I guess it just didn't happen after I won. It couldn't have happened. So Mel Franklin says he doesn't care if he's got to come out of his own pocket to pay for this thing. It's going to get done. Later on, he pleads guilty to stealing out of his campaign account. He's no longer on the county council, but that's Prince George's County, okay? A number of these politicians, judges, they're self-dealing. That is the culture of this county. It has been for a long time. So, all right. There are a number of things I figure out when I get on the inside, okay? One of them is the food vendor that provides the food services at the courthouse. He also supplies food to the prisons and the juvenile detention facility. This guy lives in Prince George's County. He's a huge campaign contributor to Anthony Brown. I tallied $23,000 in campaign donations. That's across 3 different campaigns. That would be lieutenant governor, which is what he was at the time that they were mass incarcerating the children, Congress, and then now attorney general. So there was some money he gave to Angela Alsobrooks, of course, after she delayed the funding on the prison project / juvenile detention facility / court school. So this guy, I was told he was the one paying off the judges to mass incarcerate the children. Now, at the time this was happening, the Department of Juvenile Services, the audits show, Department of Juvenile Services is the agency that provides correctional services for the children. So the audits of the agency show that there was no bidding for the food contracts. Okay, there were millions and millions of dollars of contracts that were going out there. There was no bidding on the process. Anthony Brown, okay, he created this system of these contractors paying off these judges to mass incarcerate these children so they can get their kickbacks. Now, I believe there's other contractors. Now, Judge Michael Pearson, who I talked about in the very beginning of the video as one of the people who were one of the judges who were harassing me. At the time that Herman Dawson is mass incarcerating these children, he is married to a former social worker for the Department of Juvenile Services, and they create this family business making money off of prisons and juvenile detention facilities. He should have been in that New York Times article, but we're going to talk a lot more about him later. All right. So from day one, Anthony Brown, the judges, you can even throw Angela Alsobrooks in that mix. They were looking for ways to get me out of there. They wanted to craft that 1,000-page complaint against me because they had no idea how much I knew, what I was going to uncover, what I was going to tell the FBI. They were terrified of me. And I mean, I could tell you one judge's words. She said, you know, you're never going to get anybody on the inside to talk about the criminal activity that happens in here. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what the voters elected me to do. In 2020, when I won, I had the support of Progressive Maryland. And I remember sitting down with them and, you know, them asking me, what are we going to do to fight the corruption on the courts? I said, look, the plan is simple. We just need somebody we trust to get on the inside. And when they witness criminal activity, call on law enforcement for assistance. And that's exactly what I did throughout the time that I was there until the very end. I witnessed criminal activity and I reported it. So promises made, promises kept. You know, I just want to add too that in 2016, Anthony Brown gave my poll workers a really hard time. There was one teenager that he aggressively approached, snatched my flyers out of her hand, threw them on the ground, demanded to know who gave her these flyers. And I mean, he terrified this young girl. And he called up my campaign manager. He was yelling at her for supporting my campaign. At the time, we had no idea why he was acting this way. We did not know about his connection or his part in this web of corruption of contractors that are paying off judges to mass incarcerate children. Anthony Brown, at the moment, he will not release the list of prime contractors with Department of Juvenile Services at the time the judges were mass incarcerating these children. Obviously, he just doesn't want the public to see this web of corruption and who the contractors were that were paying off the judges. We get that. But I mean, again, at that time, we had no idea why he was acting that way. And now we get it. I mean, even Judge Michael Pearson, who, you know, we're going to talk a lot more about together, those two are very sick, evil, abusive men. I mean, they have the help of women too, but they are a piece of work. And, you know, I had never heard of Michael Pearson before I walked into that courthouse. But again, it's just the harassment and the reaction to me that made it so obvious that these judges were taking bribes to lock up these children. And we're going to talk more about the harassment that they put me through because they thought I was talking to the FBI about them. So we'll do that in the next video. And thank you for listening. Hi again. So at the end of every video, I'm going to do a brief recap of the names of all the public officials involved in this web of corruption to help you keep it all straight. All right, I want to start with the politicians. The first one is Angela Alsobrooks. She is now the United States Senator, Angela Alsobrooks. But at the time that Judge Herman Dawson was mass incarcerating children to make money, Angela Alsobrooks was the state's attorney for Prince George's County. So she was the prosecutor putting these cases in front of Herman Dawson. She later becomes the county executive for Prince George's County, where she promises the judges $23 million to build their juvenile detention facility / court school. Now remember, the judges are desperate and greedy to make their money. The children do not sleep at this facility. The judges thought they found a way to make their money that would not anger people because the children aren't on lockdown 24/7. In 2020, the election cycle that I won, Angela also Burks was controlling the PAC that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to defeat me because they were afraid if I got on the inside, I would complain to the FBI about the corruption happening within the courts. Next, Mel Franklin. Mel Franklin was our county council person who was helping the judges build their juvenile detention facility / court school. But remember, he later on pleads guilty to stealing out of his campaign account. He no longer serves on the county council. Next, Anthony Brown, who now serves as Maryland's Attorney General. But at the time that Judge Herman Dawson was mass incarcerating children to make money, Anthony Brown was the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. He created this system of corruption. He was the one who made sure his campaign donors became the contractors who was paying off the judges to mass incarcerate the children. Anthony Brown he also played a significant role in the appointment of judges in Prince George's County during his tenure. Next, the judges. At the time that Judge Herman Dawson was mass incarcerating children to make money, the administrative judge was Sheila Tillerson Adams. Now remember, she resigned from her position in tears and anger at me for causing her resignation. Her right-hand person is Judge Danica Cotton. Judge Danica Cotton is now the administrative judge on the Circuit Court for Prince George's County. She is there to continue the corruption. That would be the lying and cheating and stealing that the judges do. Judge Sheila Tillerson Adams was the one who was taking the lead in building the juvenile detention facility / court school that she withdrew when she resigned from her position. Next, Judge Michael Pearson. Judge Michael Pearson and Judge Cotton are a little too close. We'll talk more about them later. But what's most important about Judge Pearson is at the time that Judge Herman Dawson was mass incarcerating children to make money, Judge Pearson and his then wife had a business making money off of juvenile detention. We know they were going to make money off of the juvenile detention facility / court school. Next, Judge Michael Reed. He was the chairman of the Ethics Commission. He was helping the judges punish me for complaining to the FBI that they're taking bribes to lock up children. Next, Stennis Roll. She's now a judge on the Circuit Court for Prince George's County, Maryland, but initially she was appointed as a magistrate. Remember, she was new to Maryland. She had little courtroom experience, but she was important to create a hostile environment for me because she worked for Parks and Crump, the two lawyers who I told you corruptly influenced the prosecutors to tamper with evidence when I reported being drugged and raped to bury the case. They have significant influence and money down in Florida to get things like that done. Okay, that's it for now. I will see you in the next video.